licensed OSU products. Now here's your host, Tom Dirato.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Eddie Sutton Show. Hey, the Cowboys are on a nice roll. Let me give you these numbers. You'll like these. 2 in a row, 7 of the last 8, 9 of the last 11, tied for second in the Big 12 with a 5-1 mark, and now at 13-4 overall. I know you feel like things are starting to come together.
I thought the last two games, we went into Lubbock last Sunday and beat a good Texas Tech ball club. Our defense was outstanding, and in the second half we started to play offensively like we've been wanting our team to play, and then we hosted Baylor here at home and beat them 75-47. The defense continued to be very good, and our offense was really much better. So that's a good sign, getting ready to go down to Texas and play the Longhorns.
Wouldn't you say for the most part the defense night after night has been there this season?
Well, I think that's what's carried us because we've been so inconsistent offensively, and in our last outing, the one thing that probably has created problems for us when we have to play a half-court game is our center position. Alex Weber played the best game that he's played since he came to Oklahoma State. He had 14 points, had 7 rebounds, and when you put Frederick Johnson in there, who plays the same position, they played 39 minutes, had 16 points, 16 rebounds. If you could get that kind of production out of your pivot position, then you're going to do well because we do have outstanding perimeter players.
Alex really looked like he was having fun that night against Baylor. It was another good week, the 3rd straight road win as far as conference play is concerned, and finally we get a blowout at home. We have all the highlights coming up after this opening timeout.
Hi, I'm Rockford Todd, videotape operator for the Eddie Sutton Show. I'd like to welcome everybody back. Now back to Coach and Tom.
Little behind the scenes look right there. Welcome back to the show. And Eddie, for all the reasons we've mentioned over the years, it's never easy now to play Texas Tech. But as I mentioned before, for the 3rd time this year, we got it done on the Big 12 road.
You know, if you're going to compete for a championship, you really have to protect your home turf and win most of the games at home. But you've got to go on the road and beat ball clubs. And thus far, we've had great success winning at A&M, Baylor, and of course at Tech. There's Bonovich shooting the shot. He usually doesn't shoot them that wild. And that was one of the reasons we were able to beat the Red Raiders. We did an outstanding job on their guards, Young and Bonovich. Also, our transition game, I thought, really came alive in this ball game. We ran better, and Gottlieb got the ball to, he and Joe got the ball to some of our inside people on the break, and it continued on in the game with Baylor. Great out-of-bounds play, and there's Desmond Mason showing some of his jumping ability.
Just put that out-of-bounds play in for this particular game.
That's correct.
And I think
we'll use it again, though. It worked well.
You know, when things work, it's good to keep using them again. Tough first half, really, for both teams. Not a very pretty one. Cowboys got out of it with a 23-20 lead, but it looked like both teams were having a hard time establishing anything on a consistent basis.
Well, I thought the defense was good on the part of both ball clubs, and when it is, you're going to look ugly at times, and that's the way that first half was. But I told the squad at halftime, we're up 3. That's better than we were when we started the game, and they came out in the second half and just really screened better in the half-court offense. I mentioned we ran better. And, of course, when you shoot the basketball, the ball goes down for you, well, then, you know, it camouflages maybe some of the shortcomings that you have in the game.
We're going to talk a little bit about Alex here in a minute, especially in the Baylor game, but he started to show signs in this particular game of being a lot more active.
Well, he was much more active, and I think it showed up at the defensive end more than any place else, along with his rebounding. But, gosh, that's a great sign because we kept thinking all season that he's going to really blossom, and in the last 2 games he's done that.
23-20, you see the halftime lead, and really they're having a hard time at Tech. That wasn't a very big crowd, although it was a Sunday noon game, not exactly the ideal time to play.
Well, they have the same problem we have. If you play an early game like that, especially on Sunday, the people have to travel from Midland and some of the other towns, just like our fans come from Oklahoma City and Tulsa and surrounding areas. So it really held the crowd down. And, of course, they weren't in school yet. Good defensive play by Doug Gottlieb, and he drives the length of the floor. That's another thing that our ball club has begun to do a little bit better, is running through passes and converting them into easy baskets. There's Young, their fine guard, who just stripped Doug. That's one of the few turnovers he's had in the last few ball games.
He only had 3 turnovers in that game, but what a great floor game he had. In addition to the 7 points, he had 10 assists, 5 steals in the whole time that he played. That is good. That's good floor play for him.
It certainly is. We were led in scoring, of course, by the 2 guys that normally lead us, Peterson 22 and Mason with 24. And Pete had been in kind of a shooting slump, so it was good to see him come out of that. There's Glennon Alexander hitting a
Talk about Glennon. I was going to ask you about Glennon. Again, you're trying to get him more shots. Baylor game in particular, he had him and didn't down him, but he's going to get the shots down before everything's said and done.
In practice, he shot the ball extremely well, and then these 2 games, well, we wanted him to shoot the basketball, encouraged him to do so, and he just didn't hit the shots that he's been hitting in practice. But he's going to hit somebody for 20 points one of these nights, because he's got a great eye for the hoop. I
think one thing that really came out of this game is the confidence that this team could play with on the road. Give you a little example. It was a 3-point game with about 6:57 to go. The Cowboys go on a 15-4 run over the next 4 minutes on the road to put it away. That's the way you like to see them close it. And what about right there?
Well, you're exactly right. You can lead a long ways in a ball game, but sometimes you get down to the last 5 or 6 minutes, you've got to close the game and finish in a flurry, and that's what we were able to do against Texas Tech. We could have won the game, maybe even by a larger margin. We missed some free throws there at the end that would allow us to even win by a larger margin. We did. This, of course, is the Baylor game. We're running what we call Cowboy screen down, and Doug Gottlieb drove the ball all the way through the defense. We scored the first 4 points here, and it looked like, guys, this is one of those games where the way they used to be. And then all of a sudden, we miss, I think, about 10 or 11 shots in a row, and they get up on us 9-6, and then we went on one of the biggest runs that I've ever had a ball club have. I think 33-4.
Over a 13-minute span, went from 9-6 down to 39-13 up. That's quite a turnaround.
Well, everything fell in place. Bob Herson, the sports writer for the Oklahoma City paper, asked me, and I said, well, we did everything well. I mean, we shot the ball well, we executed well at the offensive end, our defense was outstanding, rebounding was good, and when that happens, you look like it's an outstanding ball club. If you could play like that for 40 minutes, you'd beat anybody in the country.
No, that's a dream span, there's no question. As you mentioned, I mean, when you look at all the components that go into a basketball game, you mentioned offense, defense, taking the ball away, scoring off turnovers, blocking shots, rebounding, just like Weber, you can't come up with a better 13 minutes.
No, that's correct. And running the floor, just like we got the ball up the floor quickly and ended up getting a 3-point basket.
Game's so easy when it happens like this, isn't it? You just have to sit over there and watch.
Glad to see Doug hit a tray. You know, he's struggled a little bit with his perimeter shooting, but that was a good one. And a great follow shot by Alex Weber. There's a good example of being alert, and if you're an offensive rebounder, you're conditioning yourself to go to the board. When the shot goes up, assume that shot's going to be missed, and that's what he did, and he got an easy tip in.
Alex said after the game that he felt good, and there was John Gilmore right there. I assume he's going to say that was a pass, but it was a bucket nevertheless.
Well, he gets an assist anyway.
But Alex said he felt like he was having fun for a change, and that's the way you wanted him to play.
Well, that's the biggest thing. I think he'd lost a little confidence, and we've tried everything possible to get him pumped up, and maybe it's starting to work. Good pass by Joe Atkins into John Gilmore, and that was the first game John had played in since way back in December.
How about the fact that we're playing Baylor for the second time in the space of 11 days?
Well, I don't think any coach likes that, but you have no control over conference scheduling, and the one thing that I'm always concerned about when you've beaten a team on the road and now you play them that much closer to when you normally would play someone, that your team might be flat and not have the respect that the other team deserves. And yet in this ball game, I thought we never quit playing. I made mention at halftime when we had the big lead. I told them, don't lose your intensity, because when you do, it really shows up at the defensive end more than anywhere else. And our team didn't do that. Great pass by Gottlieb. Doug had 7 assists, no turnovers in this ball game. Joe Atkins had 7 assists.
and running the floor like he always does, Desmond Mason. But, you know, we looked at it several times, and it seemed to be a game where everybody got up and down the floor in a hurry.
Well, we were alert, you know, and played hard, but sometimes you can play hard and you still don't look alert. You miss easy shots, you fumble passes, things like that. But I was very pleased with the way our team played.
You see Pete doing what he does probably as well as anybody we've had here in a long time, is come in and get that missed shot and put it back in.
When Pete rebounds, he's going to have a good game offensively when he's that active, and he certainly was in this ball game. He had 6 rebounds, had 16 points. Alex, I mentioned, had 14, and Desmond led us with 18 points.
You know, it seemed the second half effort against Texas Tech really carried over into this one. The momentum continues to build, and that's what you're looking for.
Well, I think our team right now is playing with a lot of confidence, and we certainly need that because we've got a stretch here where we can really do well and really improve our position in the league. I mentioned we go to Texas, and then next week we got a non-conference game with Southern Mississippi, which should be a terrific game. They were really playing well. They lost to Cincinnati by 2, but they beat South Florida. They've beaten some other teams during the league. So that'll be a tough game. And then we got A&M and got Iowa State here at home before we have to go on the road.
Well, after 8.5 months as the interim commissioner of the Big 12, Dave Martin is back here at Oklahoma State, resuming his duties as associate athletic director. Dave joins us on this week's Off the Court feature, and it's all coming up next. Have you ever wished you could be the commissioner of a conference for one day, for 1 week? What changes would you make? Would you make a difference in the lives of student athletes, coaches, administrators around the league? Well, OSU Associate Athletic Director Dave Martin just returned after serving as interim Big 12 commissioner for 8.5 months. We caught up with Dave this past week and found out his stay in Dallas was not only challenging, but very rewarding as well. You know, Dave, to serve as the Big 12 commissioner, interim commissioner, had to be a great opportunity as well as a challenge for you personally.
Well, it really was, Tom, to be quite honest with you. When I was approached about the possibility of going to Dallas, I really didn't know what a commissioner did. I didn't know exactly what all that entailed, but I thought, how many times in your professional career do you get the opportunity to go from being an associate athletic director at Oklahoma State to be the commissioner of a conference that's so prestigious as the Big 12? So when we sat down together, my wife and I, and talked about it and thought, you know, this is a great opportunity. It's going to maybe open up some doors, but most of all, professionally, it's just a change of pace. It's something that challenges you, and it gives you the opportunity to meet a lot of new people. So I decided I'd give it a try, and it was a great experience.
During the 8.5 months that you were in Dallas, cite a few of the accomplishments that were kind of put together while you were there.
Well, I think the thing that probably stands out the most in my mind was when I went down, there was a situation where the people just weren't having any fun coming to work. There was a lot of internal problems, and we really made a decision collectively as a staff that we were going to solve those problems, but we weren't going to solve them and have the newspapers reporting them week by week. We had made a commitment that we were going to buckle down and solve the problems internally and let the papers continue to report about the athletic teams within the conference. And so when it's all said and done, 8.5 months later, I think that's one of the big accomplishments, what we were able to change the problems and solve the problems internally, but they weren't reported in the news. I really appreciate our staff getting together and doing that. Beyond that, I think there were some things that were definitely landmark things. One, the new alignment they had with the Cotton Bowl is something I think that it really is going to rejuvenate the Cotton Bowl. It's going to renew interest in ticket sales in the future, and that what I'm talking about is the fact that Cotton Bowl now is realigned with the Southeast Conference instead of the Pac-10 and the WAC Conference. So I think that's a big accomplishment for the Big 12 because that really gives a lot of interest and a lot of stature back to the Cotton Bowl. And I guess thirdly, I think that the thing that we completed with the cable television with Fox is a huge thing. Financially, that's a big thing for the conference, and it really gives a little shot financially to the rest of the schools within the conference.
Dave, how tough was it staying in touch with things going on back here in Stillwater while you were in Dallas?
Well, Tom, when I first took the job as being the interim commissioner, I didn't know what it entailed, and I thought I could do both, but it probably took me about one day to realize that I couldn't do that I needed to spend all my efforts at the Big 12, and I was basically there 4 days and 3 nights a week. But the perspective it did give me was to see what the other 11 institutions across the country were doing, and found out that Oklahoma State definitely is on the right track with our facility renovations, but there's a lot of facility renovations going on in the other schools too. And so I think this is going to bring Oklahoma State onto a level playing field and a level recruiting field with the other institutions we're involved in. And also I like the idea of Terry Don has come out and said that we're interested in going beyond just the renovation with Gallagher-Iba, but to include Lewis Field, because you're going to see the other 11 institutions doing the same things with their football facilities.
Dave, how do you want to be remembered during your stay in the Big 12 office?
Well, Tom, the most rewarding thing for me working in the Big 12 for 8.5 months was to see a group of people that, when I first started working there, didn't appear to be having much fun at work, and I didn't see very many smiles in the hallways. And 8.5 months later, I saw a group of people that were excited to be at work, and they were smiling and laughing, and work was fun again for them. So I guess I want to be remembered as the person that was able to bring smiles and fun back to the Big 12 office.
Dave, before you go, what's your take on the basketball season up till now?
Well, Tom, like every other Oklahoma State fan, I went with great anticipation to the Bedlam game the other night. Went to the groundbreaking just before and was looking for the great game of the season. Didn't come true the way I wanted to see it. But I'll tell you what, in every athletic season there's highs and lows. And if there's any one person that I'd want to lead my team to the end of the year, it'd be Coach Eddie Sutton. I think at the end of the year, Kansas City, you're going to see the Jayhawks and the Cowboys in the championship game. You can take that to the bank.
I know Dave did a great job down in Dallas, but we certainly missed him around here. You know, in the 9 years I've been here, he's been a dear friend, and he's a great asset to our athletic department, and I hope we can keep him because he has the talent to lead an athletic department as an AD, or even go back into some commissioner position. So we're glad to have him back on campus.
He put the heat right on you, didn't he, at the end? That's typical Martin.
He's got a great sense of humor.
That's what you're hoping right there. The Notebook, our Ask Eddie Sutton segment, and of course a look at a tough road game. That's all still ahead on the Eddie Sutton Show. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Chris Manuel, the Production Satellite Services Coordinator here at OSU Television Services. Welcome back to the Eddie Sutton Show. Take it away, Tom.
Welcome back to the show. Let's get right to the Notebook now. Our first item is Money Mess, and that has a lot to do with the restricted earnings coach suit against the NCAA.
Well, that amount has just gone on up and up, and I think the NCAA should have settled it long before now, but I'm glad to see it finally coming to an end because those assistant coaches deserve that money.
How about our Meet the Press? You think the officials ought to meet the media after a game?
I think that it would be a good thing. I know there are a lot of coaches who would like to see an official have to go to a post-game press conference and explain some calls. Now, whether that ever happens, I don't know, but I would be in favor of having them do it.
Making a move for the umpteenth time to talk about moving the Big 12 tournament out of Kansas City.
Well, Kansas City's done an outstanding job, Tom, as all of us know, and I don't think they're going to move it for a while, but I noticed that Coach Barnes from the University of Texas said that he would like to see it moved around. And when I was coaching at Arkansas, we used to move it around, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, and the same thing could be said when we were in the SEC and I was coaching in Kentucky. I think in time you'll see it come out of Kansas City and maybe go to a southern city, because I think Tom's point was well taken. The fact that a lot of people in Texas, it's hard for them to get to Kansas City, and they need to be exposed to basketball a little bit more than what maybe they are. So I think it will happen, but I can never say anything critical about Kansas City.
It's time for this week's Internet question from oakstate.com, presented by Southwestern Bell. I think Mike Martin has a question here from Sulphur, Oklahoma. Mike?
Well, Mike, that's a good question. If we can get his knee rehabilitated a little bit more, well, we're going to suit him up. He's not going to play. He's definitely going to redshirt this year.
If you have a question for Eddie Sutton that you want answered on the show, you log on to Oklahoma State's official athletic website at oakstate.com. Participate in the Southwestern Bell Ask Coach Sutton contest. Quickly, Cowboys, Longhorns, 2 5-1 teams squaring off Saturday night in Austin.
it'll be a barn burner. We've had not a lot of success down there the last 2 years, but I really believe our team's playing well, and I know Coach Barnes' team is playing well, so it ought to be a great contest.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show. I want to invite you back next week. For Eddie Sutton, our entire crew here at Educational Television Services, Tom Dirato. Goodbye, everybody.